What's up? Adorai in this piece. Giving you the straight dope, no needle. Got a long one here from the world of Everin. Dog folks and blacksmith and clerics and half-elves, oh my. The world has a little tummy ache. We call it an earthquake, which is a call to action to our heroes. The name of this tale in question is The Land Chooses Its Heroes by Montsho Shelby. It was a calm day in Golast. The flowers were in bloom from the first signs of spring. The people's spirits picked up with the coming of nature's renewal and rebirth. There was life and joy to be had in a place so slow and serene. The land stirred, waking from spring, but in a foul mood. The ground rumbled. The townsfolk of Golast stopped their day-to-day toils to regard this bizarre hiccup of nature. The ground shook and slowly but persistently grew more violent, as if agitated with the world of mortals. Regular folk struggled to stay on their feet when the earth bade them to sit. Then there was a climax, a final eruption, and Everin had spoken. The ground splintered and broke away, revealing a strong, bright stream of light that enveloped all in its path. People fell into fissures in the world, as if fed to nature itself. The lights exploded into something that wasn't fire or lightning, but all elements. It was potential itself. Those that didn't fall into the world's waiting maw were burned, torn apart, thrown, frozen, electrocuted by the grasp of chaotic magical machinations. When the rebirth was done, there was no Golast, just a crater where life once lived. A solitary figure walked down a hill in a black hat and coat. He drew in smoke from his lit cigarette rolled of Ivern weed. His coat swallowed the newly dawning light of day and swayed from side to side rhythmically. The mysterious figure's gait was confident and determined, but also aimless and carefree. He cared about something, but nothing on the mortal plane could raise his eyebrow. He walked towards the town of Keene, which touched the Echo River. It was a small settlement that lived in the shadow of Lorelei, the big city not 15 miles east. The stranger walked into a place which bustled with life after the onset of the new dawn. He saw a boy carrying 2 buckets of milk up an unpaved road and stood in his path. The boy nearly fell over, but the figure caught him with one hand, steadying him so he didn't spill his burden. The boy looked up and saw a man with the all-black face of a hound. He nearly slipped from the surprise. Dog folk weren't uncommon to Temperus as a whole, but they weren't very common to Keene in general. The stranger's cupped hand flared with a flicker of orange fire when he relit the flame on his weak cigarette. "Excuse me, mister," said the boy. "Ain't nothing to be excused about, son," said the stranger in an even and calm voice. The boy noticed the glint of steel coming from his hip, so he pointed to it with the curiosity of a child and said, "What's that, mister?" A smirk curled under the deep shadows of his hat, and he said, "Swift death." The boy moved as if to walk away, but the stranger spoke again. "Say, do you know where the blacksmith is in this place?" Metal slammed onto metal, making music. It was the song of hard work, the heartbeat of the common man's soul. Candale loved this new life, or if he didn't, he surely was too busy to think about it any other way. He had orders to fill. The people moving to and fro were the background noise of his life, a life he had earned, free of death and destiny. He slammed his hammer into the moldable metal that glowed bright orange from its awesome heat. When he worked, he was above it all. His mind operated on pure instinct. His shop was on the corner and open on 2 sides to let out the heat. On the moments he did manage to look up, he was treated to the botanical garden off in the distance that was a sanctuary to exotic birds. He stopped the rhythmic blows of his hammer and he felt the odd tingle of premonition. It wasn't a supernatural skill, but an instinct, something in him that knew to stop and bring the world back into view. He saw a man in black 20 paces from his shop looking in, and before his eyes stopped to focus, the stranger's hand moved in a blur and drew a gun of the hand, one of the primary weapons of the Seeker. It exploded with fury. He ducked down the instant he saw the stranger take aim, reflexively inferring his intention seconds before it happened. A bullet dinged off his blacksmith's anvil, and he put his back to it. He had his hammer in his hand, but his true weapon hung over the door as decoration. He rolled over to his work table, and 3 bullets streaked past him in rapid succession, causing chaos. He saw that the stranger moved position, got in closer, and was now at the threshold of his shop, mere steps from entering. The blacksmith looked to his sword over the door and closed his eyes. Suddenly, a ripple of energy happened from the ceiling, and a doppelganger of himself stepped out from a glowing portal that opened from the ether. It looked to him and nodded. It was his mirror image, except for a rippling translucent glow around his seams. It took the sword and hung onto the wall, as still as a spider waiting for the stranger to enter his web. Candale looked up like a meerkat, not because he needed to see, but for the sake of distraction. The gunslinger fired without hesitation, and a bullet streaked over his head, embedding itself in the clay oven behind him. As the man in black's hand moved to hit his target, the mirror image dropped from the ceiling, swinging his sword in a furious arc. As the gunman turned to address this new threat, the mirage of a man flung the sword towards Candale. The blade twirled like a top so quickly it created a brilliant optical illusion of light. The gunman shot the mirror image, and it vanished in a puff of smoke as if it were never there. When he turned, the blacksmith had vaulted his work table and intercepted the spinning sword, putting himself in arm's reach of the shooter. He swung expertly. The stranger turned his back and let the blacksmith's sword connect. It didn't hit him, but a metal circular contraption that looked much like a wheel with barrels attached. The man in black rolled forward, creating distance, and expertly fed bullets to his gun before he leveled out. When the stranger looked up, a mirage of the blacksmith was standing next to him, pressing his attack, and the original was a step behind. The stranger shot the after image and turned to the blacksmith, who was in mid-sword thrust. Candale stopped before the blade made contact. "Arkin?" he said. The mysterious stranger raised both his hands in surrender. "You got me." When the stranger slowed and fed his 2 guns to his hidden holsters in his duster, Candale placed his sword on the workbench. They looked at each other for a moment, one appraising the other's worth. Arkin had the canine face of a black Labrador if it had been born on a battlefield and devoid of love, while Candale was a human man with massive arms and an honest quality about him. None of his martial might was presented when he worked. There wasn't even a hint of evidence of proficiency in a weapon aside from the strength of arm that came from the profession of smithy. Candale broke the standoff and embraced Arkin in a hug. "You shouldn't play games like that. I could have killed you," said Candale. "That's good. I was hoping you could. That's why I did it," said Arkin, cupping his hands and sparking a flame for his cigarette. "I don't have much use for swords. Unless I'm selling them nowadays." A copy of Candale appeared from the ether as if born in the moment from his mind's eye, picked the sword from the workbench, then scampered back up the wall with no concern for the concept of gravity. When his weapon was secure, his double vanished as if it were never there. "I'm glad to see you, Arkin, but, and I say this with all love due, what the fuck are you doing here?" Arkin smiled, even though he was limited in his range of micro-expressions due to his heritage. "Adventure, that's what. I'm sure you've been feeling it. Everyone on Temperus has been feeling the tremors. It's time to pick up the sword again and seek." Candale smiled, not a smile of happiness, more of amusement. "I told you I'm retired, and I'm not doing it anymore." "I heard that. But that was before destiny called to us once again."